Welcome back to In the Oven with Adam and Brad. We got sour strips for Adam today. Bites, keeping him moving.
Need some dopamine. What's up, y'all?
Man, it is the 2nd of January filming this. So
2025. What
we're
up?
2025. I'm in a weird mood. I don't know if it's like partially holidays, partially sickness, sleep deprivation because I have a baby now.
Yeah, dude, you got a weird wham bam because you got the post holiday blues. I think everybody gets that. I do. I get the and I'm so glad that it's gone because last week we talked about my anxiety. It's much calmer. I don't have like these weird things I have to be at. So
Mine is just like this weird, like feeling relationship with social media right now. It is this idea of like, I love the community that I built. I enjoy the people that I talk to, but I'm watching the way social media is like the trajectory and I'm like not interested in it.
Right.
Social media is the new rat race.
Yeah.
It is the rat race of what our parents got involved in, that 9 to 5 rat race. That's what social media has become. And it's like using, how do I build AI and all these systems to do this? And like, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's high pitch. It's all the time. It's the comparisons are everywhere. Like,
I want a big house on some land with
doing good enough. I'm not doing it fast enough. I need to do it when So it's tough.
Aubrey literally just sent me a video of a girl like posting her 10 days postpartum with her 4th baby and like a day in the life. Right. And Aubrey's like, oh my God, she has it so figured out. Like, what's wrong with me? And I said, well, first off, it's her 4th baby. It's your 2nd. So like, hopefully she's got a little bit better figuring it out. But second off, like, that's her highlight reel of that day. Like
she's holding it together for that video.
Yeah. And, but I mean, I think it's just like the comparison trap, all that stuff. It literally makes me want to just buy a house in a big, I just imagine this big prairie land area. And I'm just no technology. I'm washing my clothes I'm just washing my clothes on a washboard,
We're heading to a weird time, man. And I know the allure of all that type of stuff. And it's just everything being done for me, it's just pushing you to go faster and faster and faster. And it's like, for what?
Yeah, I think, so I guess, ironically, I think my church is starting a service in the new year, and there's message is called the elimination of hurry. Mm-hmm. And I think that's starting to resonate a lot more with me. You feel in this day and age that like, if you don't make a move quick enough, like you're going to be left out, and everyone has a message that they want to share. And then people are just resharing other people's messages. And it's just like, I feel like there's just so much noise, and I just crave quiet.
Yeah. I think, well, we've talked about this several times, but I think a lot of modern life, man, to include my little weird anxiety stuff going on, is just, you start living too against the grain for too long, or going, looking at too much stuff. And for me, there's no one specific thing. I love everything about what I do, but some of the, when you're trying to compete in certain, truthfully, it's trying to compete in arenas that you're actually not even really competing in. You're just like setting yourself up for failure. I'd say it's like me watching Chris Bumstead videos, getting ready for a local bodybuilding competition.
Right.
Like he ain't showing up.
Yeah.
You're ready, dude.
Yeah.
When you get there, like be working on it. But if and then it was never a goal of mine to compete against him, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when we get there, we'll be ready. We're building the social media teams out. We've got, we got an editor. We got Paul on the team. He's rocking. We got Andy still helping us out. We're slowly going to start building that up the way we want it under, your lead. But you're right, dude. It's fast paced.
Yeah.
It's fucking changing every day.
I told you, obviously I have a newborn, so surprised if y'all didn't know that. But I was holding him last night, and I was just kind of like scrolling while I was just sitting there holding him. And it was just like every video was just like, this is how much money I made. This is how to make more money. This money. And you're just like, oh my gosh, man. Yep. I get it. Money is definitely a tool and a vehicle to afford you certain things in life. But like at some point you're just like, man, that can't be the only thing you're just attaining in life is like money.
No, it's
Like I'm not passing by videos that say like happiness, self-worth, like, you know what I mean? They're just all just like money, money, money. You know?
High. Yeah. It's the wrong frequency, man. Yeah, you're right. There's too much of it. It's very charlatan feeling in the form that it is in. And maybe you recognize it more than I did, but when my kids were much younger, Liam is the one it's like hitting me, because like it'd be like, hey Dad, you want to go do this thing? And you're like, shit, I gotta cover down on this. And so you really gotta weigh like what your priorities are. When they're younger, it's easier. The hangout time you have is more like, I don't know, less personal. Yeah. Where now it's starting to get like talk about things. Right. I mean, I need to be engaged, and I need to not be thinking about something else. And so, yeah, I think we're at a sweet spot though, man, because you know, with what the brand's going to do and everything else in this next short little bit, it's going to be.
Well, I think a lot of it too comes with that. Like, I mean, it's been a little bit longer for you, but you immediately feel the pressure of the new life, right? And I feel the pressure of like, not only just, you know, besides the financial implications, just to be the person I need to be for my family now. And so I think that a lot of that too is just like the being present and being, you know, there. So yeah, it's definitely a weird thing.
That's part of being a good dad though. Being a good father though is like, you kind of like, all right, this new thing is my responsibility, not just to like pay for a little bit of groceries. Right. It's like a whole life now that you got to look out for, think about, protect. Yeah. You know, and then,
well, I don't think that, not saying our parents didn't know, but I don't know if they really knew, truthfully. I mean, they maybe knew, but they didn't know the extent of like what parenting does long term. Right. I think they
had no idea. I think they were blissfully ignorant. I think maybe you could have known. Right. There were people talking about it.
Right. Yeah. But I just don't think that they, you know, truthfully knew about like, the way that you parent, it shapes your child's future so much more than, you know, I guess there's always been that nature versus nurture thing, but I don't think that people really understood like how much that shapes people.
Do you know, I think there's...
Or maybe the information wasn't out there, so.
Do you know, I think there's no way to not become your children's baggage, though?
Yeah.
Like, I think no matter... There's no way to be a perfect parent, and if you were, then you like maybe set them up to be like weaker or not unable or something. I don't know, but you know what fear I actually have for my kids?
What?
And I don't think any other generation has had this before. So not to instill a new fear here, but like I don't know what to tell my kids they should learn how to do to support themselves at all. I mean, every generation before, I mean, including I'm living right now, and I think I will be able to live out my old age on if I decided tomorrow to become a plumber or anything else. I think there will be room in the market to be a tradesman, to be whatever. But to have, you know, 11, a 6, and a 5-year-old to tell them like, what, a doctor, a pilot, a driver. I mean, I think things are going to be automated.
Well, even things like social media influencer. I think I sent you that link.
You did.
For those that don't know about the dead internet theory, I'm not going to educate you on that. You can kind of look it up. But essentially, I think we're headed towards that. And Meta just announced that they're going to launch like AI avatars to be social media influencers to sell products, because they've realized, man, we're paying a lot. Like our platform is what these people are making a lot of money on. Well, we can get in on some of this money. So essentially, you're going to have AI influencers like talking back and forth to each other. They're going to be able to boost their own engagement. It's a weird game that is going to happen. But like all of those things, I think is what is where my mind is at. Is like long term, like where do I see myself on social media? And I think the answer is just like you need to do social media truthfully for you. And I think that for documenting my life, for documenting those things and being able to go back and look at those things, look at you know, things on YouTube and things like that. That's what you've got to use social media for, because if you're using social media to like compete against Meta and Facebook, like, or I guess Meta, that's the same thing, but they're gonna win. Oh yeah, you know. And so you really, it's just hard.
Yeah, you know? I don't know, because see, so like, obviously we're a very social media forward company. We want to stay fun, hip, you know, stay on all the tech and social media trends, but like. Me personally, I hear that it's going to be like flooded with AI and bots and stuff. I'm going like, I need a new version of Facebook, or I need, you know, because I still want to stay connected. So I know that people are going to want to stay connected. I do want to stay connected, but also I am losing the connection between the people like I care about because of what all my feed has become. Yeah. So like, I think we're just gonna have to go back to calling each other. Or
Well,
something,
yeah,
man.
and I was going to tell you, which you probably don't do this as much as me, but like I found myself like in recapping with my friends that I haven't talked to in a while. I'm like, oh, did you see what I posted? And it's like, some of them are like, no.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I had someone call me, obviously since the baby's been born, they called me, which forgive anything I say at this podcast, because I am very sleep deprived and not all their sickness stuff. But they were like, calling me like, hey, I just heard, like someone told me that you had the baby. And I was like, oh, like didn't even think about the fact that like you didn't see it on social media or something like that, And it's like, yeah, man, I mean, that's the world that we live in. And we've lost that, like that thing. And I think that with my idea of the trends of 2025, I think you are going to see this like major, this divide kind of happen where you have the people that continue to live in this digital world. And then you have people that almost like revolt against this digital world. And they go, no, like I'm minimizing screen time. I'm minimizing social media time. I'm deleting accounts, and I'm going to start meeting my friends every Friday for a hour-long book club meeting,
Warhammer Market, it's coming back. Tabletop gaming.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that slows you down. Yeah, tabletop gaming. I see that type of stuff coming back. I see book clubs and meetups and stuff where a group of folks get together and just kind of talk.
Therapy is at a all-time high because people don't have anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
It's not even about, like, don't get me wrong. I think that therapists are majority of them are well-trained and can actually walk you through things. But a lot of times it used to just be your friends.
Yep.
Your friends would be like, oh, man, I'm so sorry that's happening to you. Like, let's get you through this.
I also think that because we don't have anybody to talk to, because we're not in social circles, I think that we don't take care of ourselves like we could. Like, we don't push ourselves for ourselves as well as we push ourselves to, like, get impress somebody else or be part of the group. Like, if you're working out with a group of guys, I know you don't want to be the weakest one. But if you're not with anybody, sometimes you don't care. You know what I mean? We're not going into groups anymore. People don't clean themselves up enough. People don't, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just there's a general decline, and I would call it laziness, but I feel like it's just people kind of moping into, like, well, for what?
I think it reminds me a lot of like when you watch those like Ready Player One or those like societies that live in like surrogates and stuff like that, and you start like. A lot of times I would watch it and I was like, there's no way that people would let themselves or the whole like society decline into this like kind of just like filth. But then they do because they escape to this digital world where it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, man, I don't know. I think maybe I'm just getting way too far up in my feels about this stuff. But like,
be careful, dude. I started watching too much of it and I was like,
Yeah. So while we're talking about that, maybe we should talk about some of these. I do want to talk. Obviously, I want to touch on New Year stuff and touch on baby being born, our plans for the year. But there's some of these reaction videos that I definitely want to talk about. So New Year's traditions around the world. Like let's hopefully this is a light one and we'll get started that way. Here we go.
The weirdest New Year celebrations in the world. The last one is amazing. In Denmark, people smash old dishes against loved ones' doors to spread luck and show appreciation. The more broken crockery, the more love you've got. Next, let's go to Italy, where Italians enjoy lentils at the year's end for wealth. And some even toss old furniture out of windows to rid their homes of bad vibes. Moving on to Ecuador, Ecuadorians burn giant dolls, some as tall as 10 meters, to clear the past and welcome a fresh start. Finally, in Estonia, people feast on 7, 9, Oregon, 12 meals throughout the day because these numbers are believed to bring good luck and abundance.
Oh, that's interesting. Those are all good things. Yeah. I mean, obviously here in the South you have, which I don't know if you did it, but collard greens, black eyed peas.
I did. We actually went to Finn's and they just gave us some.
Oh, my mom made some and she's like, let me know if you want to come pick up your wealth and good luck or whatever.
Good luck and money.
And I said, listen, I got the wealth and good luck already, you know? But no, I think I did enjoy it. My mom used to make that meal every year. It was collard greens, black eyed peas, ham, and then cornbread,
Oh, yeah.
But I do enjoy that stuff. But obviously we've had a ton of food coming through with the baby. So I literally am just like, no, we have food. And so let's see. AI made predictions for 2025. Okay. Lord.
I asked AI for predictions for 2025, and this is what they unanimously agreed on. So they believe that AI will decipher the first alien signal as a breakthrough in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, as many companies have started already. Also, we'll see companies like SpaceX begin to mine asteroids, igniting a space gold rush, which will plummet gold prices and create an entirely new resources phase. Fully functional AI-enhanced human organs like livers or kidneys will grow and be trialed in humans to adjust bodily functions in real time. Microchip wearables will be announced for payment to allow you to pay for goods by just waving your hand. An anti-tech off-grid movement will be adopted by many Gen Zers who feel disconnected to growing technologies. We'll also potentially see the adoption of a 4-day work week, which would set a trend for the world to follow. Manned missions to Mars will begin preparations, as will preparations for the Artemis 3 lunar mission, which will take place in 2026. And finally, genetically modified babies will become more mainstream, seeing CRISPR technology gene edit newborns for certain traits. Pretty cool, right?
Last
Yeah,
year, man.
Yeah, so some of those I think are a little bit too far out. I don't think that we will be doing some of them. I think it's just that, like, I don't think we'll get to AI organ stuff yet. No. But I do think that, like, the Gen Z thing, I mean, I'm not Gen Z, but like I'm starting to like want that. I think that
we were just talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's so funny that we're talking about that. So I'm glad that I think it's ironic that they predicted some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that's probably dead on. I've already said that, you know, if you could genetically modify characteristics into, I mean, that's what people do with plants. They you know, I mean, they breed plants to get specific traits. So now instead of, you're just like, oh, you really love this person, but they have a family background of this negative thing, we can just genetically modify that out. I know people that don't have kids because they're worried about passing on some kind of genetic thing, and with that kind of thing. But then there's always a line. It's like, well, where do you draw it acceptable and where do you not? Also, who knows if we go to Mars, because if we're living in a simulation, then Mars isn't even really going to load until you get there.
Yep.
You've seen that observer theory stuff, right? Yeah, they talk about they shoot electrons through the double slit experiment, and the dotting. Yeah, they should act like they should just go straight through because they don't interact, but then they actually create a wave pattern, and then if you they only act a certain way. Listen, this is above my pay grade, but they only act a certain way if they're being observed. And so there's this whole idea of, like, when you're playing a video game, what you are interacting with on the map loads, because it's too difficult for your entire computer to load the entire map just because you're not interacting with the entire map. So as you go into new places, then that map kind of like loads in front of you. And so that's like really what they're saying, like our experiment with Earth is, and like each one of us is like a simulation, and the fact that it like doesn't load. But that's a deep dive into things I don't think I have the brain power right now to deal with. Yeah,
and very tinfoil hat adjacent, but also there's a lot of science there, so I don't know.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you saw during the ball drop, Mr. Beast was in Times Square, and he was hyping up his new Beast games that he's spent a lot of money. Yeah. Oh my gosh. A lot. Yeah, like I don't know how much, but I mean I've heard it's like
he's sweating.
Yeah, I know he's super worried about it. So I do know they broke 40 world records again. What's that mean? We make world record. I mean, like, just to put it in perspective, when we tried to break the cookie world record, there used to be like for the most people dunking cookies and milk simultaneously, and then they literally created another category for the most people dunking cookies and milk simultaneously across numerous locations, and they had like so I mean
nobody makes more 5.5 ounce stuffed cookies per day anywhere than us.
Yeah,
exactly. We break that record every day.
Right. So, I mean, again, it's just like when you niche down, eventually there's a record that everyone can have, right? So no one named Adam no one named Adam Cantrell has ever worked at a cookie company longer than you.
Yeah, boy.
So, go ahead.
Mr. Beast's new Amazon show just broke 40 world records, and he got them all delivered today. Some guy said world record for most controversies in 1 year. I'm dying. The top 5 records include most contestants, largest cash prize, most cameras recording, most money given in first episode, and largest island given away in a game show. Mr. Beast said he spent $50 million building a walled-in housing community for all 1,000 players on the show, and gave away over $25 million in total. All this money and no food or water for the players? Come on, bro. Mr. Beast plans to clear this up with camera footage once the show releases, thankfully. Will you be watching this show?
Well, listen, anytime you put that many people together, there's going to be controversies. I mean, how many times in Olympic Games is there controversies over the food that they're eating, the housing conditions, the whatever? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, shit, put 5 people in a room and you're going to get a controversy eventually. Someone's going to think that they were treated some form of way. So a good way of controversy is just someone doesn't think it's fair. You know?
Well, and then also, Mr. Beast, so big, so fast, and then throwing all this money. His team has done big things, but not all things are created equal.
Right.
Housing and staffing and putting up all, for this level of contestants and game shows, I mean, he probably just made a big oops. And
yeah. Well, also, like, I talk about this with Fat and Weird, is like, I've never been a CEO before. And I'm a CEO of a company that is growing and is getting to be a size that is, substantial. Mm-hmm. And so, he was just a kid making YouTube videos, and like he got kind of put into a position, and you kind of like fake it till you make it. Like,
and he's still doing it because he's so I mean, there's nobody you can call to really ask
right, and no one's done anything at this scale. So at the same time, you're just like, yeah, you got to figure it out. And so you're not going to do it right. And I think the sign of someone that is truly successful is when they take things like this, they're going to get hit and they just keep going. Yeah. They learn and they keep going. I
always
so
like
it's just
to
like
see how people handle
it. So I look at this and people want to talk crap about him all the time, but it's just, he's handled this really well. And I mean, I can't imagine this. I mean, he's young, isn't he? He's like, is he 30?
Yeah, no, maybe. But if not, right,
maybe 30 years old. I mean, it's just like the amount of pressure to like be under, to be that age and to be dealing with like that level of
scrutiny too, man.
Yeah. Everything about your life,
He said he can't go out.
He's 26.
Oh gosh.
26, bro. I mean, not going to knock it because at 26 years old, I was like driving a nuclear submarine. So like that's a pressure too.
No big deal, Jimmy.
But like still, like the eyes on him are different. You know?
You can't go eat at a fast food place because people will take a picture of your car and dox you, and then they'll people start following you around town. I've literally was like watching interviews, and it was kind of sad.
Someone the other day, he was behind them at Starbucks and he bought their, like, he's like, the person posted a video recording him while he's sitting in his Tesla and was like, look, I'm buying Starbucks for Mr. Beast, right? And he actually commented back on there, thanks for my Starbucks. I bought the entire like line Starbucks to pay it forward, which is great. But it's just like, yeah, you can't like everyone's watching you. You can't have a bad day. I mean, we all have a bad day. I don't care who you are out there. I don't care if you think you're just fucking Mother Teresa. You're not. And so, and then when you have that bad day, people then broadcast your bad day, and then they share their experience with you. And then anyone that didn't like you now is like, see, I told you he's not what he's supposed to be. And it's just like, oh man, I feel for people like that. Again, they kind of created themselves, but at the same time, like, you don't sign up for everything just because you signed up for some of it.
That's That's right.
Oh, okay. This one's really cool. Telepathy and nonverbals. I've been talking to you about that. Again, this kind of goes into our whole like living in a simulation situation.
I seen you, that girl that has done that like huge breakout tree of like neural pathways and stuff.
Yes, for ADHD
it's for autism. It's for the spectrum, autism spectrum. But like, I don't know. I don't know if she sells this chart. She's just made a huge chart. She talks about like even the way like chemicals break down through the urine.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah. That was pretty wild. But no, this telepathy and the nonverbal is very interesting because they're essentially I think there's like a podcast you can listen to, and it's called the Telepathy Tapes.
Do you think it's evolution?
Oh man, it's really hard because I think that sometimes I'm like concerned if I say something, it like undermines my Christian beliefs.
That's what I mean about last week.
Yeah,
when we talked about.
Yeah, and so
I do too.
Yeah, because then you're like, if I'm living in a simulation, does that mean that like that undermines the Christian beliefs? And it's like, well, can God not still be the creator of the simulation?
That's what.
Right? Yeah, and so like, yeah, I think a lot of times you go like, oh my gosh, like what can I believe and what can't I believe without undermining it? And it's just like, well, I mean, the Bible literally just says that like, there's only the one way to heaven, right? So it's just like, as long as you believe that thing, it really doesn't matter what else you believe. But I don't know if it's evolution. I don't know if it's people have been able to like tap into like higher cognitive forms. Like how they said like blind people have better sense of taste and hearing. You wonder if these like nonverbal people just have a better sensory.
What I
of
worry
other stuff.
is like, is it a form of like evolution? Or is it a form of like sped up evolution? Or is it done to us?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are things about all this short form content, man, it's really digestible. Did somebody know that ahead of time, and now they just really tried pushing it and and the headphones and all that stuff?
Right.
I don't know. That's where I go. Like,
yeah, because you have to think that they've been researching dopamine forever. They know what causes dopamine, so like they probably knew that short form content.
Experiments, torturous experiments on people all over. I mean, fought a war about it. They didn't really say why they were doing any of that stuff. And
yeah, there's deep conspiracy theories. I will listen to this. I've already listened to. I actually listened to a different guy that's probably a little bit more in depth in this. But like, let's listen to this.
I started listening to this new podcast, and it is blowing my mind. It's called the Telepathy Tapes. She is doing this podcast based off this study that children with autism and nonverbal autism have telepathy.
what?
It's the wildest thing, dude. So she got in contact with this doctor, and she's like, okay, well, I gotta study this. And so she put like her credibility on the line, right? Because it's like, that sounds a little crazy. But she did this test, brought in hundreds of kids that were claimed to have this ability, nonverbal. And what they would do is they would put a parent in another room, the child in another room, and they would show something on the screen, whether it was a number, a picture, color. Then they would go and the nonverbal kid would communicate on like an iPad or something, and they're 95% accurate. But apparently it's a phenomenon. Like a ton of autistic nonverbal kids.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll go even more in depth of this than this show did. I actually listened to even more of this, and the kids claim that they go to this place called The Hill.
Oh, you tell me.
Yeah, and The Hill is where they can like meet and talk to each other in this like almost like this astral plane, if you will. Yeah. And these two kids claim, one of them is I think Texas and one's in Utah or something like that, Florida, whatever. These two kids, and they meet every night and they talk to each other, and they've never met in person. And they knew so much about each other, and they claim they go to this place called The Hill and they communicate, and they call us like verbal speakers. Something. They made it sound like we were like just so archaic compared to like what they can do. Yeah. And they believe, you know, for some of these nonverbals, I don't know how they've extracted this information out of them, but they believe that these nonverbals are saying like eventually everyone's going to get to this point where like we just communicate with our thoughts. And their biggest thing is it's a better form of communication, because when I communicate with you, you can infer emotions and things like that, but when you communicate with your mind, like they're able to like feel your emotions and understand that stuff. So like it's a lot more of like understanding the bigger picture behind the conversation that we have, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting to say the least. I mean, this is the kind of stuff too that makes me go, I just want to live on a house and just like not.
Well, it feels like how the like little gray aliens would communicate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Just like upload it into your mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is. Part of me goes, do I watch all these telepathy tapes and like go down the rabbit hole, or do I go like, Brad, you don't need to know this. You're probably never going to communicate with your mind. If it becomes so mainstream that everyone's doing it, you'll learn then. And then at this point, it's just like, you don't need this. Just throw that away. You don't need to know this. You know what I mean? I
want to like shoot lasers out of my eyes or something. I don't want to communicate.
Well, if you could do that though, someone else could. So, all right, TikTok ban in the U.S. supposed to be happening like next week.
Donald Trump has asked the Supreme Court to delay the upcoming TikTok ban in the US.
I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points.
A law passed earlier this year means TikTok will be banned unless it's sold by its Chinese parent company ByteDance before the 19th of January. But why do lawmakers want it banned? The country's Justice Department alleged that Chinese links to TikTok present a national security threat posed by foreign adversary-controlled applications. TikTok and ByteDance, however, argue that the law threatens free speech protections for its 170 million US users. Donald Trump's lawyers filed a legal brief on Friday saying the US president-elect opposes banning TikTok and that pushing back the 19th of January deadline would give him the chance to pursue a political resolution.
Yeah, so for me, you know, I think the ban on TikTok is I don't see a point in it.
I don't understand it.
I mean, because at the end of the day, like we were talking about this, a man said that his like LG or Samsung washing machine was like the 4th highest data user in his entire house.
I have more. All
these companies have access to so much stuff. You know what? I have an app on my phone for like my door locks and stuff like that. It's a Chinese app.
Yeah.
like you get rid of TikTok, but like they have access to your phone. I mean, half of the Apple's products is made in China. Like, let's not act like they don't make half of the stuff that's in your phone. So it's just like, to me, I think that they're masquerading that around because people in the U.S. were probably lobbying like, we're not making a lot of money off of TikTok. Another country's making all this money off of TikTok. And, you know, so if TikTok did get banned, it would just get replaced by a U.S. version of TikTok.
Yeah, well, so I don't really understand what the ban is for per se. I mean, I know ByteDance owns the majority of it, but Chinese companies own all kinds of stuff in the United States.
Yeah.
So I thought it was purely like data breach. That thing said that links, like people go to.
Well, they said it was like a national security threat because they have access to the data, but it's just like.
I would want to know what data. I actually am very, very curious about what data, and I'd prefer Congress dove into that what your laundry machine was collecting, what that lock had in it, what that, you know, whatever. Does it have microphone capabilities? Does it have any kind of sensibilities? Like,
well, we already know Alexa's been listening to you forever. So like, it's just like, I mean, I don't think it's going to get banned. I think it's just like a dog and pony show at this point. It's probably just costing a lot of people a lot of money. And yeah,
stock manipulation so that Congress can buy it all up when they, you know, veto it or whatever.
Yeah. The Simpsons predicts the future. Here we go again, right?
Years earlier, in the 1998 episode, Homer wrote this equation on the blackboard. To viewers, it meant nothing. It was absolute jargon. The equation predicted the mass of the missing God particle so precisely that he was only this far off.
This breakthrough in understanding the origins of mass
15 whole years before it was discovered. What?
That's what. That is crazy.
So Matt Groening is like hella smart and friends with scientists and friends with people at CERN and like might have been helping them work on some of that math. He's that smart.
Okay.
So like, I think that's where some of that comes from.
Yeah, but to be that close off or that close to something, which I don't think people realize, like first off, a gram is like, I don't even know how to. I mean, a paperclip. Yeah. And that was like a millionth of a gram.
Yeah,
so you're talking like a piece of sand.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. There's a lot of like, there's so many episodes that they've done so many things, but it's like, but really when you think about it, it's not like they crashed the helicopter with a bunch of different athletes, you know? It's not like they did other celebrities becoming president going down that very specific escalator. And so maybe it's some of that telepathy stuff, dude. Maybe there's some like projection.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I actually heard someone say this the other day is that like we actually live in like, it's kind of like the whole timeline theory of like Marvel, you know, how there's like multiple timelines, and they're saying that like you live in every timeline, but your conscious is only in one of the timelines. And so like a lot of people feel like meditation and that kind of like speaking things into existence is like you are moving yourself into higher timelines where by higher timelines means like timelines where your life is perceived as better life. And so it's kind of this whole idea that like every decision that you make in your timeline, the main timeline, if you will, like in the other timelines, you made other decisions. And so like you can like move yourself freely into those timelines.
Well, part of it is the gathering of consciousness. So like part of the enlightenment in like the yoga type practices is in some of that going and bringing back with you to wherever you are physically, the traits of all you, because in all these other timelines, you can do this really good, or you can do that really good or whatever. And like bringing it back in and like, I don't know if you've seen any, like, granted, I'm not saying believe any of the stuff, but like Billy Carson or whatever, the guy that does the ancient mysteries, talks about a bunch of, basically ties a bunch of like biblical stories into like weaves it into kind of make something. And so that, he even says that like the Christ consciousness was more of a consciousness that was collected into this entity.
Okay.
And so anyways, kind of, if you don't understand it, then I can't really explain it all, but it's interesting to think that, if you have multiple, different kind of timelines out there, and one person is like, you know, your intellectual best self, and one's your physical best self, and one's your most charismatic best self.
Right. That you're collecting all of those and try to bring them into one person.
The different chakras or whatever.
Well, I guess if you think about it, like, so like for me, like I feel like I'm trying to continue to pursue a better version of myself, especially mentally, because you realize like, you know, how much your mental, Well, I mean, I've been kind of diving deep into something. I mean, maybe this whole podcast episode should probably just be like, do we live in a simulation or like that kind of thing? But the idea is that like nothing happens to you because like everything is it's a projection, right? Like everything is a projection. Your mind is taking in data right now. Like light is bouncing off my eye to like form what you look like, right? I don't know if you really look the way that, like when you look in a mirror, I don't know if you see the same thing I see. So like everything is you are the projector of your own reality. And so I think a lot of the times you're talking about a car cutting you off and you go like, you're mad at that person. That anger can't go anywhere. That anger is like, you are mad at yourself because like you can't give that anger to that person.
No, it's true.
And even if you honk your horn, he didn't hear you, whatever. Like you can't give that anger to anyone. So like you just
energy.
So it's like you are transferring the anger to yourself. So now you just created a feeling of anger, and then you're like, now you got it. Now you let that bother you, or like and it's just weird when you start really diving into the fact that like everything you do is almost like to yourself. It is all to yourself. So the emotions that you create. Like the anxiety, like you feel about certain situations, like you create all those emotions yourself. Like people aren't creating those emotions, for you. So it is wild when you really start understanding like how much control you have. Sure. I think a lot of people think they don't have the control. It's like you have so much more control over situations and things. But again, I half the stuff I feel like is not making sense. It is in my mind. Just know it's making sense in my mind. Apple keeps you in their ecosystem. Duh.
Yeah.
I've tried so many times to break loose of the Apple ecosystem. I got an Android phone this summer. I was like, that's it. I gave it a go for like a couple of months. I'm like, I'm just going to go straight Android. But it's inconvenient. Like with an iPhone to iPhone, it's so simple. AirDrop, so simple. So many different things where that walled garden that Apple's created is perfect. They've done a fantastic job of making it really convenient for you to stay with Apple.
Yeah. Did they ever talk about how they came up with the name Apple? Because it really is kind of weird when you think about the fact that like the apple is the whole Garden of Eden, knowledge of good and evil,
Macintosh,
and how they've
right? Is Macintosh. That was the first.
Because Macintosh was an apple, a type of apple. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's still weird to me. Like, why would you pick Macintosh too? Like, why? Steve Jobs like the fruit.
Steve Wozniak was like.
Well, Steve Jobs is also kind of pretty weird too. Like Yeah, I mean, it is weird because, I mean, obviously I'm not trying to draw the correlation between those things, but like it is just wild that like they talk about the garden of the ecosystem and stuff like that. And it's just like, again, I think you can draw correlations between numerous things in life. That doesn't mean that they actually have a correlation or anything. But
you don't have to draw too far of a, Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to you about this earlier, that Apple is who they've pretty much said changed interior design for people, because Apple was kind of what truthfully brought people into this digital age. You can say Microsoft this and stuff, but like personal computers were a thing. People had Blackberries, but like Apple released an ecosystem, and their design philosophy was a very minimalistic, blank, clean design, and that started ruminating everywhere. And so you started getting buildings had no architectures, clean lines, crisp. Everything was just like sterile. And then you're seeing
Apple was the first like hipster corporation. Apple just came out and was like, "We're cooler than you.
Yeah,
think differently." Whoa, you don't have an Apple, loser.
Right.
Like that's how they acted.
Yeah,
and somehow everybody adopted it.
Yeah.
Like when I took a while to adopt an iPhone because I just had Android. I never needed to. And now I don't really know how I would.
Do you know why I took a while to adopt? It used to be exclusive to AT&T.
That's right.
My parents are on a Verizon plan and with a corporate. And for Apple, I think for the first like 2 to 4 years, it was a while. They had an exclusivity with AT&T, so you could only get an iPhone if you were with AT&T. Right. I don't know how long it was, but I do know that in college, like I had like HTC Thunderbolt type thing with a keyboard on it. I had a Blackberry, and I actually didn't have Instagram for the longest time because it was an iOS exclusive thing. And I remember when it finally became available on Android. So I would be curious to know how many years AT&T had exclusivity on the iPhone, but 18 months, only 18 months. Gosh, it felt like forever. But it probably just felt like forever, because think about how back then, think about technology wise, 18 months was a long time in technology. I mean, Yeah. So yeah, it's wild to think about that whole situation, how all that's changed. 18 months now, it's like, shoot, there's a new iPhone every year. So it's like, I mean, what are we on, the 16, right? I mean, yeah, crazy. All right, random facts. This is
Here we go.
This is Andy's favorite.
Random, not so fun facts. If you kill a panda in China, you will be punished by death.
Good.
The runtime of the movie Titanic was the same as the amount of time it took the actual Titanic to sink. 3 hours and 14 minutes.
Okay.
If the population of China walked past you in single file, the line would never end due to the rate of reproduction. Here's a fun question. Would you rather fight Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers? In Cambodia, they serve a pizza topped with marijuana. It's known as Happy Pizza. A lonely tribe on a small, remote island, the Sentinelese are perhaps the most isolated people in the world. Sentinels violently resist contact with outsiders, including killing anyone who approaches them. The Sentinelese even survived the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the deadliest in recorded history. In order to receive the best news this week, you should like and subscribe.
Oh, man. So sometimes I wish that we lived in a society that just kept everyone away. And no technology, no nothing. Leave us alone. We're happy over here. A lot of those videos were involving ice. I don't know if you noticed that. But speaking of ice, the weather coming. Have you been watching that?
No.
I know I've been telling you about it.
You've been telling me.
So apparently there's this like Arctic storm like coming from like northern Canada, and like the pressure system's like pushing it through like the Midwest, and it's like coming down into the South. And so Atlanta, I think the 10th through the 14th, that time frame, they're talking about like pretty hefty snow there, and they're even predicting snow as far down to like South Florida areas.
Be a great time for you guys to head over and stock up on some cookies. You can warm them up in the oven, you know, stay warm with some cookies for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I would, you know, they keep saying like you can only predict weather so far out, right. And
it's
you know, it's a little far out, but you know, it'll be interesting to see if some of this stuff comes true.
Well, hopefully it's not snowing us in. I mean, whatever, as long as we can get the machine in the building and Rion can work. We got that big boy coming in.
When does it deliver? Do you remember?
The 13th.
Oh yeah, like right in the middle of all this thing going on. Yeah. So yeah, it may be interesting. They're predicting like the record lows for certain areas and snow, and then I don't know. Did you pay attention to the news at all yesterday? Things that happened?
I mean, like the terrorist events?
Yeah. So well, we'll talk about this because I know you don't watch football, so I do. The college football playoffs have started, but like the big boy games were yesterday. It was the first time that like the top ranked seeds were playing the people that kind of like won their play-in games, if you will. And the teams that were top ranked are 0-3. So all the teams that got the bye week and could come in all lost. Some people are saying it was, you know, seeding issues. Really, it's like they weren't the better teams. We all knew that. Some people are like, oh, did they get too much time off and they didn't play as well? But the big game was going to be last night was Georgia playing. Gosh, are they playing Penn State? I think, or Notre Dame.
And they moved it to today, right?
Yeah, they moved it to today because in the wee hours in the morning, it was a Houston person that lived in Houston like drove a car into Bourbon Street, and I think something like killed 15 people and injured like tons more.
But is this also the one where there was like an IED found and stuff?
No. Yeah. So they did find some like explosives and some stuff in that vehicle. And they found like, supposedly they said they found an ISIS flag. I don't know.
Sure.
I forgot the person's name, but it was like very Middle Eastern name.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I'm not trying to, I mean, it's a very Middle Eastern sounding name. And then there was a bombing in the Trump Towers in Vegas with a Cybertruck, which I feel like you would kind of relate that to a message to Elon and Trump. And
I for sure do.
Both of the cars were rented on Turo.
Yeah. We talked about this, dude. That market is just getting gutted. This is what, this is what I've heard.
Yeah, and they're all military people, they're claiming.
Has this guy been vetted? They said special operations, and I was going to say if this dude came from...
I just doubt it was special operations because, like, first off, the explosives that he used were just...
This dude used fireworks, gasoline, and some fuel, and I guarantee you if he was anything, Green Beret, anything, like, this is not... I saw the video and thought some dumbass put a bunch of fireworks and blew himself up with fireworks, period. Right. But since I found out there was gas cans and fuel cans in the car, which you're in a truck... I feel like just you know better.
Right.
Unless he just put it all in there and the fumes cooked off that stuff. Some of those things are sensitive to solvents, man.
No, the way they put it in there, it looked like it was just like thrown in the back.
Why? I mean, I'm glad that casualties were minimized as best as possible, but like,
oh, and there was a detonation device. They found a remote detonation device. I forgot that too.
Wasn't he still in it?
He was still in the truck. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
What?
Killing the driver and injuring 7 others. But they're also saying that too, like, because it was a cyber truck, a lot of the blast was directed upwards because it's so strong, and so the plastic on the back is what made it shoot up. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just really weird. Obviously, this all happened on New Year's Day. I hope this is just not an inclination of like what the year is going to look like. Again, I think that it's hard because, man, you want to just trust things, but you feel like there's just people at work trying to like smoke and mirrors.
I watched a thing this past couple of days that there are more National Guard troops in the New York City subway system than there were after 9/11, and that they are effectively just added categorizations of crime that if you combine them all, crime is up, way, way up.
Right.
But because instead of there being like majorly violent and non-violent, because now there's like 7 or 8 categories.
Yeah.
That those two don't really get anything to fall into it because like they don't really do anything for non-violent crime in that city. It's just like a ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like, look at this.
Yeah. And
250 more troops.
Right. And then we were talking about this, before the podcast started, about the whole like the U.S. has no since I just had a baby, we'll talk about this. The U.S. has no maternal or paternal leave policy, and how Nestle is makes pretty much all of these baby foods, and then they're a big lobbyist for. I mean, actually, Aubrey and I were having this conversation. I know it sounds like I'm all over the place. Aubrey and I were having this conversation. What do single moms that need to go back to work because they're not getting paid do with their babies? They have to start them on formula. They can't breastfeed. Right. I'm sure they can pump at work and they can try to like subsidize some of those things, but in general, they have to use formula. One, that's an incurred cost now. They have to go back to work and then pay money for formula when they could just breastfeed. Two, formula is not as good as breast milk. I mean, breast milk has things in it to help your baby.
Shared biology.
Yeah.
It has literally shared biology.
In fact, I truthfully think that breast milk was probably what will keep our child safer through sicknesses because Aubrey can build up antibodies and is passing it on to the baby during this time. So like all these things, and then you get in there.
Take it even a step further, the society, the constant rat race, the push for more, the push for, the bankers getting involved in elevating the prices of everything. Women feel socially, whether it be inside the home or outside of the home, pressure to get back to work, to get back to whatever, to like, to like be equal, to like, I got to work as much as you do. So like, you have to help me. We got to, and like, it's just the whole like lifestyle. It's just like everybody go fast. And then the big boys, the Nestle's of the world, even I don't even want to talk about it, but even like the CEOs of these insurance companies and these CEOs of these huge banking institutions, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't, you need to look. Like you can't just have this air of like, we're doing good. Like you don't. You are raising the prices of everything. You are squeezing, making healthcare unrealistic for everybody. The doctors used to be rich because doctors used to make more money in like 1970 than they do now because they kept more of it.
Right.
Now the hospitals and the insurance agencies and the bankers are getting rich. The developers are getting rich.
Well, I want to go down that rabbit hole, but I watched like a 25-minute video on BlackRock about how BlackRock, what they're considered as passive investors. They're considered passive investors, so they don't have the legal requirements of like equity shareholders are, but they do have voting rights, and they manage like pension funds. That's how they have so much money. And the pension funds only have to return a certain percent. So they get to keep all the extra above that. And then if they lose it, it's like, oh, your pension fund lost money. They never lose money.
These multifamily guys are getting all their money.
So they have so much money. And I was listening to this thing, and it was talking about essentially the government has said, you guys, like they own combined between BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, they own more shares than Jeff Bezos does of Amazon. They own like 16% and Bezos owns 9%. So what they're saying though is that like if any one of those entities sold the shares that they owned in Amazon, it would tank Amazon. So they're legally like not allowed to sell their shares. They have a major voting rights. They usually just vote at what the company does for like profits. And so at the end of the day, they don't care about the employees. They don't care about this stuff because they have to chase profits. Yes. And so
and
it is
so
it's
rich that the only way
greed, money and greed has ruined this world.
But they think about this. They've become so wealthy that it's hard to wrap your head around. The way they become richer is through just debts, and the only debts that are large enough for them to like get their appetite whet is like governmental type debts, governmental type like. And so I know people think of debt like getting a mortgage on your house. Yeah, it's like that. They go buy a thing, it stabilizes, it grows in value, and they go, I want all that.
Yeah.
Give me all that. And then the banks go like, no, you have to keep some in. And they're like, fine, until they get big enough. And then they're like the airlines, they're like major medical, they're like insurance companies. We want all the profit. If we don't have a good quarter, you'll bail us out, the United States Treasury.
Right, which we did.
Or we'll tank you.
Well, yeah, the car market. I mean, that's why the government had to get involved and like save the car market.
Lawyers, bankers, all of them.
It's gotten to a point where like someone has a pie and it's so big they can't eat their entire pie, but then they look at your pie and they're like, I want a slice of your pie too. And you're like, but you can't even eat all your pie. And you're like, yeah, it don't matter. I need a slice of that too. And so it's a weird thing. I mean, I feel like it's a natural human characteristic of almost like hoarding resources because you like feel like you need it all. But
I just think if we went back like, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, and you went, what are all the jobs that didn't exist that are just in between like the customer and the money or like the seller and the money? Just these jobs.
Yeah.
And then you look and they're all so high paying.
Yeah.
There's like so much room in the middle somehow between the person that's supposed to be paying the money and the person that's supposed to be receiving the money.
Yeah. So I was watching someone was talking about CPG brands, and they were talking about a brand which I think you've probably seen before. It's like that Dose. It's like DEUX, dough or whatever. And it's like this. They're like a dough. I don't know. They're like supposed to be like a healthy cookie dough type thing. And someone was like pretty much saying how they think they're like going under because of like this weird thing. But long story short, a lot of people were commenting, and they're like, CPG brands are so hard now because the food distributors in the middle, which I'll tell you firsthand is true, are wrecking the industry. Yeah. They're coming in. Essentially, no one wants to deal with you because these, Publix and all these places are too big to deal with you directly. So you have to deal with a food distributor. Well, there's only so many food distributors, just like there's only so many airlines. There's no way to compete. You can't start a FedEx or a UPS now. You can't. Amazon, the only reason they've been able to start a delivery service is because they subsidize it, and they're not even really profitable, right? I mean, just like, so it's just, you can't start these companies anymore to compete at the level because the game is too big now. And so they say we don't have monopolies, but we have collusion. Airlines set prices, and that's the price. Like, that's it, And so like, there is no, free market in that aspect because they're not really competing for your business because they go, hey, we have a floor. You don't want to go below this floor.
Yeah, they figure it out. They definitely do. And yeah, what are you going to do about it? Some of that stuff where it's like you can't pay too much attention to it. I'm with you, man. Like that piece of land somewhere, build some like little, I don't know what kind of business that keeps your family fed and all that stuff. And
it's just like I've seen people like that are not financially well off buying big pieces of land, and they're like, okay, they're almost going back in time. They're like, I'm gonna have the chickens and the cows, and you're gonna have the whatever and the whatever, and we're just gonna like live off of like our land, and it just feels like constantly nickel and dime. Yeah, it's true. It is. It's constantly a game, and then you're the loser. We're the losers at the end of the day. Like no matter what, this game, we're all playing Monopoly, and
private equity's winning.
Yeah, and you're always landing on Park Street, and somebody else owns it. So, but yeah, and I was reading this thing about farmers using John Deere tractors and all the new sensors on there, and the sensors just going out, and the whole tractor won't work.
Yeah.
And these people are losing so much money because John Deere has to come fix it. You're not allowed to fix it.
The warranty stuff.
Yeah. And so it's just like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure that our parents had fear and doom and gloom 20, 30 years ago when they talked about certain situations. So hopefully, some of this stuff isn't really as bad as we are making it out to be. But I guess in my mind, in 2025, you just need to get your perspective right. You need to look at what's really important to you. Why is that item you're buying? Why is that thing you're doing important? Is it important for you to make memories in your family, or is it important because you want to feel like you're somebody to someone else?
Yeah, and why does it have your attention?
Yeah.
Make sure that the things that have your attention, at least that's what my intention is for 2025. Gosh, I keep hitting this microphone. Yeah. That's what my intention is for 2025, is to be more focused with what has my attention. Pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think that's my struggle with social media is like, I think you're pushed to buy things that you don't need to make your life happier. And a lot of people put themselves into terrible situations because they're trying to buy things that other people tell them they need. And I think that's the hardest part about social media is like, I don't have anything to sell you. I mean, like, obviously I want you to buy cookies, but I want you to buy cookies because like, that's the dessert that you want to eat with your family, not because like, you need to buy my cookies. Right. If you're going to eat a dessert with your family, I'd like for it to be my cookies.
Love a shot, for sure.
Right, but at the end of the day, like, I think that really, consumerism has just made social media a place that makes me kind of feel ick because I'm just such not a consumerist person. And so for me, I hope that when you follow me, that you follow me because I make you feel good about yourself. I challenge you to be a better person. I challenge you to think about the way that you think about things, not saying that I think about it the right way, but just challenge your beliefs on things and maybe make you just look at it in a different perspective. And that's really why I want people to follow me. It's just because like they're like, oh, Brad's the kind of guy that I would like to hang out with. And then maybe soon we'll have some hangouts, so.
Might have some things coming for 2025.
Yeah. So hopefully this podcast made sense because I feel like my brain is like in a fog. Again, low sleep from the newborn, but thank you to everyone that's reached out to me, congratulated me. Really appreciate that. We have a lot of really great things happening for 2025, and I hope it's a year. I'm going to say my one word for 2025 is going to be clarity.
Okay.
That's going to be my word.
Okay.
Well, you going to come up with a word? Is it too much to put you on the spot for a word?
Yeah.
Okay. Next week, I expect a word.
That's my word.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. 2025.
Yeah.
I'd say a different word. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it PG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand. Gotcha.
Gonna be everywhere, man. Household name status, dude.
LFG is your
LFG, baby.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, thanks for watching. You're worth it. Do our shit.